Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking some time on this Wednesday afternoon to join us to see what's new with Student Manager and ACEweb in November. On this slide, you see the most current versions of both Student Manager and ACEweb. And today, Matthew, Jason, and Stein are with me. We're going to start with Matthew to let him show us what new goodies we have in Student Manager. And Jason will follow with a few announcements about what's new in ACEweb. And then Stein is going to do a demonstration for us of our new Google sign-on feature. As I turn things over to Matthew, I want to remind you that you can ask your questions and you can make comments in the chat box, and I can answer those questions or get those questions to our presenters, and we can get those answered throughout the presentation or at the end in our question and answer session. So I'm going to turn things over to Matthew so that he can show us what's new in Student Manager. Matthew, are you seeing the controls come up? Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay, let's try this again. Remember that we'll be recording this session, and so you'll have a chance to return to our webinar archives if you would like to take a look again, or if you have some of your team members that can't participate with us today. So Matthew, I am seeing your screen now. We'll turn things over to you.
Okay. I've got quite a few reporting items this time. So I'm going to start with reports, registrations, counts of optional fees, and just modify default report is fine here. I don't know, I'm just going to grab something just so we can get in here and look at the data environment. So right here, co-account is now available in the counts for optional fees report area. That way you can report out directly from here or export data and be able to have co-account in here. So that's kind of the first quick one. Let's get out of here. Next one I'm going to look at, and we're going to run a couple of these, hopefully. First one I'm going to look at is I built a quick report. I'm not going to modify this. So this is with findInt. We've been doing some tweaks with it, so I've got a couple of things to show. First of all, so when you're running this, this is looking at who all in the cursor matches the different interest codes you put in here, and you can start putting in. Well, it says 25 there, so if I put my first one in, notice it's now putting in here the interest code list as you're building it, so you can see which ones you've already entered. So if I put computer in here, so you see the list is being added to, and if I hit OK now, at this point it's going to look who all has the art and computer interest codes. This is the normal question that comes up with findInt. Do you want to set a date range for those interest codes? I don't really care. Oh, it looks like everybody in the course met those two. So that didn't whittle down anybody in our roster, but I'm more showing what this is capable of doing rather than, you know, it's working. But let's see, what was I? Oh, Ollie. Try additional findInt regular Ollie. Say OK, OK again. No, I don't care. And I've only got one person, and So Ronald Davis was the only one in the class that had the OLLI interest code with it. That's what the purpose of FindInt is for, is to see who all matches that particular interest code. And I'm running this from a name roster. This can be in Deadbeat, or names with codes, or names with codes you can usually query by the interest code, but it's really meant for the other areas where you can't query by interest code, like Deadbeat and name rosters. So so that's the first improvement, was the adding the list, or showing you what you've typed in the list so far. The next improvement is you can automatically send the interest codes that you want in, so you're not having to type it each time. So I'm going to modify report to show this, and run FindInt here. Here's that date range question. So notice it skipped over me entering the codes. So I'm going to say no. And if I look in here, and what it's allowing, the FindInt is now allowing a parameter, and this is a comma separated list. So if I want to do art and OLLI here instead of just art, which art is just going to give me all 10 people because this is an art course, I'll close. Do I want to save my changes? Done. So yeah, so this is still running just art, so it's giving me all 10 names. You have to, because I'm changing a just do it, you have to close it and rerun the report before it'll pick up the change. So this time I don't want to modify. Additional reports, FindInt. No, I don't want a date range. I just want to get in and see. And it didn't pick up my OLLI. Did it not save my report? Okay. That was working the other day. I don't know why it's not working all of a sudden right now. I don't know if it's spaces or what I need to do. What did I do? Anyway, I can troubleshoot that later. I don't need to troubleshoot it with everybody watching me, but yeah, that the intent was to be able to do just like the other, but just pass in the list, and it would automatically just pick from that list. All right, so staying here, the next thing to look at is RandPick. RandPick has been around for quite a while, and what it is it's more for statistical reporting, and let me pull up this just do it. So, and this is the new function, but with RandPick, regular RandPick without the two, RandPick, and you pass in the parameter of how many people from your cursor, or how many records from your cursor you want to get back, and this is mainly for statistical reporting. So if I preview this, Control-I, so it's just giving me the two people here. What we're finding though is RandPick it's pseudo-random. It wasn't completely random. So if you're trying to do like a lottery on the report, or trying to simulate a lottery of waitlisted people to see who gets into the course and who doesn't, the pseudo-random wasn't quite random, so, or wasn't random enough. So we went back to the drawing board and came up with this RandPick 2, which is completely random. Questions so far?
I am not seeing any questions right now.
Good. All right, so that's those. Let's look at unlimited UDFs. The new unlimited UDFs. What I've done is I've added an order column, and this way you can set now what the order you want to be with these items. And this would be, so the display, maybe I want to have movie genre at the very end, so I can spot it easier. And I could just change the number to 9 or 8, or just make sure it's the last number in the list, and tab out, control, wait, okay, close to save, come back in, movie genre, got moved to the end. Notice it didn't keep my number 9 because it is actually renumbering 1 through 8, because I've only got 8 items in here. So now if I go look at, let's look at me, because I've got some data in here. And movie genre is definitely at the end of the list. So that way you can reorder things how it makes more logical sense to you, rather than the order that you're just putting it in, and it just may not quite make as much sense. So that's everything in Student Manager, but I wanted to show real quick. Let me bring up the Report Wizard. For those of you that have the Report Wizard, Stonefield just released 7.2 earlier this week, and actually since the 7.0 and 7.1 series, there have been some neat things that they've added. So I wanted to show a couple of those real quick. If I preview gauge, yes. So this is showing you, your car gauge of this is counting registrations. This is registrations in my entire demo. So 675. You can set where the end of the gauge goes. So I set mine to 1,000. Something more than 675 is what I was really looking for. So you can have that, and you could put into the dashboard feature, which that's been in there forever. So you can hopefully see that that speedometer keep going up slowly and slowly day after day, for your total number of registrations you're getting in. And, real easy to set up too. I can just show you real quick editing it. Just putting in the ID number from the registrations. I don't have a filter because that's I would think though that you would want a filter for your current fiscal year, but I'm just, this is my demo. I'm just trying to show something. So this is where I set that max speed, or the far end of the speedometer. And of course they've got a million different choices on colors and things like that. So something more to play with. One of the other things, income, is this it? No, that one's broke. Where is my, is this one it? Enrollments. Yes, I think this should be it. One of the new things with like pie charts or bar charts is that you can click on a piece of the pie, and it runs a different report for you, showing you the detail for that. So I clicked on the computer subject code here, and it automatically passed to this other chart. The subject code equals computer, and it's just showing me then the courses under that subject code. So it's kind of a breakdown, a chart breakdown that you can see more and more detail. You can actually go deeper, more and more levels if you want to run, then maybe click on the next piece and it shows you a roster for that course. You can have that do that as well. So kind of an inception thing where you can go drill deeper and deeper into the data and click on a different one. So this is the ACEware subject code. So you can see those as well. And actually, I could have kept the computer one up as well. And that way I've got tabs up here going, and I can flip back and forth and see all that stuff at once. So kind of cool things that they've been doing at Stonefield. I'm actually going to have the newsletter article explain how I was able to set this report up. So watch for that in the newsletter coming out next week, showing how I actually did this. So that's all I've got, unless there are any questions for me.
I'm not seeing any questions, but I will remind everybody that these last few visuals that Matthew showed, the report wizard is required for these visuals and graphics that you see. So if you're interested in the report wizard, certainly send me an email and I can get you the information that you need on that. So Matthew, we're going to leave your screen up a little bit and we'll turn the audio over to Jason so he can make some comments about what's new in ACEweb. Jason, if you decide you need the controls, I'll turn the presentation over for you. But for now, we're listening to what's new in ACEweb.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. So yes, what's new in ACEweb right now? Our current versions are 4.0.052 for SQL and 3.5052 for FoxPro. Most of the development in this build is from Stein's very busy time making this new big reveal feature, which is the Google single sign-on addition to ACEweb, which he's going to demo just as soon as I touch base on the other features and fixes that we put into this build. So a couple of minor features that we added. This was a request from one of our customers that wanted the ability for people to still create accounts without needing to put in a password. So they just sign up with an email address or whatnot. We've had that ability for quite a while, and that is controlled in your ACEweb INI in the user ID source setting, where you can put in :BOK, which basically means a blank password is okay. What they wanted to do was only allow that to occur once. So they can initially create that account without using a password, but then once they come back, if they sign in, for instance, with the public password, with the initials and zip code, it's going to let them log in, but then force them to create a password at that time. So that is controlled again in the user ID source setting, and you would add another flag to that BOK that is once. And we're going to have this documented. You can also see this in the release notes for this build on the ACEware forums. So if you want to get the details on that, you can check it out there. Another minor feature that was put in was kind of a more streamlined log off method. Previously, the log off link for students was a flag set on the log on link. So it was kind of misleading, but now we have an actual user logoff.awp that you can put on your parameter or create a link and add that to your pages that will actually log the student off that way. So just a little bit of tidying up on that. Some of the fixes that we put into this build, one of the big ones that we ran into was in some of the security changes to make the software more compliant and compatible. We tightened up security on the X page routine. Now this is something that is used when you have a template that's referenced, such as faq.htm. The way that page is brought into your browser session is by using the X page routine, and then you would have a question mark and then whatever that template name is. Well, we've made it so that you can't just use any template in there. So nobody could put a template in your folder and then run that and have it, cause malicious activity or whatnot. So there is a new setting called Xpage in your ACEweb INI, and you just basically put in a comma-separated list of the Xpage templates that you want to be allowed. So if you do have some custom ones, or if you have some older ones that were in there, and you need those to be allowed on ACEweb, you'll just need to add them to that Xpage setting. The way you could tell if a page is being blocked is you would get a message that says invalid X page request. So if you're getting that, then the chances are you don't have that template, whichever template you're referencing, listed in that X page setting. Okay,
Jason,
yes.
Jason, this is Stein. Just jumping in, some of the standard ones like FAQ and a few of the others are actually in by default.
Right.
So it's the X page setting is only if we're using something outside of the standard.
Yeah, custom or
yeah.
a really older one or something like that. But you don't have to list the default ones that come with ACEweb built in.
If you're using FAQ and so what are some of the other about pages? I forget what whatever
there's about a dozen
standard. Those will come up. You don't have to worry about changing that even with this new build, but you might run into some out of the ordinary page, and if you get that error, then you can just add this to the to that X page entry, or more likely you'll call your tech, and your tech will know what needs to be done. So
either way, we'll get you sorted out. So, all right. Another one of the kind of more minor fixes was in some cases, customers' INI editors, the text version of the INI editor was really, really small. It was only like a few characters high, and so it wasn't using the full size of the screen. Stein fixed that reference so that it should correctly utilize all of your available space there. We also did some cleanup on some older deprecated ACEweb INI entries. And Stein, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if they still had those in their ACEweb INI, they may still be in there. This doesn't remove those ones. It's just removing the code for them. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just removing the code, and if you have them in there, they'll just be ignored. So by and large, you can
eventually, if you do server moves or reinstalls, they'll get cleaned out because they won't be created with a new INI setting. But they're fine to leave in there, or they're fine to take out. You can see those 3 that were removed in that ACEweb forum post. So, and it looks like we're wanting to see some examples here. So, if you want to, let me see if I can. It doesn't look like I have permission to do that. If you want to make me presenter, Sharon, I can kind of show what this X page deal is.
How about we turn things over to Stein and let him show Google Sign-On? It looks like I need to work with you a little bit on those permissions, so maybe we can return to you when Stein is done showing Google Sign-On. Can we do that?
There's actually only one more thing on my list.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
It's specific just to QuickPick customers that are on SQL. So if you are QuickPick and SQL, make sure you do get this latest 52 update, and that'll resolve the one issue that was occurring there. It was relating to the donation field and updating the cart. So, but yes, without further ado, Stein is now going to demonstrate the new Google single sign-on feature.
Okay, are people seeing my screen?
We are seeing your screen, Stein.
Okay. All right. Up till now, if you wanted to log into the ACEweb, the web module for Student Manager, you had to have a Student Manager account and have that was attached to your email address, and then you would put in that name and your password, and you could log in. If you didn't have such an account, your only option was to sign up and go through our standard sign-in routine where you put in your profile information and give yourself a password and all that. Now, if and this is up to each individual customer whether they want to implement this or not, but there is an option to sign in with Google. And if you bring up a live page, we can actually embed this Google special little Google icon or a link on there, and you can then utilize that. So if you didn't have, you had a new user coming to your site, and they said, well, I don't want to bother to put in all this information, but I have a Google account. I'm just going to sign in with Google. If you click that, you get a pop-up window here. Now, I'm using Chrome, which is, of course, Google's browser, and one of Chrome's features is that it remembers all your Google accounts. So I've got this list of existing accounts, but a user not in Chrome or a user who hadn't stored their Google accounts in Chrome could just go on to the regular Google sign-in page, and that looks something like this. And they're warning you or telling you that when you sign in, you're going to end up back at the ACEweb online portal. You're signing in with Google, but it's going to take you back to ACEweb when you're done. And so you can put in, your name here of the account that you had, and move on and put in a password and so forth. Actually, I'm going to go back, and since I always I'm so used to using this Chrome stuff, I forgot all my passwords. So I'm just going to grab my regular account here. And you notice it took me back to ACEweb, but I'm now logged in. Here's my, up on the bar here, it shows I'm logged in as Stein Gehring. If I click my profile, it should bring up my profile page with all the information I'd previously put in there, and I could just go ahead then and head back to listing of courses. And if I pick a course, I don't know why this local system is being quite this sluggish, because it doesn't have to go over a network or anything, but I could pick a course, I could enroll myself, and since I'm already logged in, it comes up, I'm enrolling Stein Gehring in this course, and I could go ahead and check out and so forth. So I got logged into this just using the Google sign-on. Now, if I come in as a person, now this was a case where I had used my Gmail account to log in. I already had an account in ACEweb with that information tied to that steingo@gmail.com address, okay? So it linked me to my existing ACEweb account. If I came in as a user, and I believe this one is one like that, a user who does not already have an account in Student Manager, it will go ahead and log me in using my Google sign-in. But since I didn't already have an account there, it's going to first bring me to this profile page. The only information that Google knows about me were, of course, the email address, which is what I used to get in there, and it has a name stored in, on the Google side, my first and last name. So it passed that information back to ACEweb, and ACEweb set up an account, a names record with that information. But we have, as required fields, address, city, state, and zip. And so it's not going to let me proceed until I come in here and actually put in, some of that information. So, and it just overwrote my email, which I didn't want to do. I think I had. Yes, so I don't want to use that, so I'll change that. Now I should be able to go down here and update my account, and end up being logged in under that account name, and again, I could go ahead then and register. But so a user, if their Google address, email address happens to correspond to an existing account, it will link up to that existing account. If there did not previously have an associated account in Student Manager, it will create that. If you have specified required fields, it will force them to fill that out, and then they can go ahead and they're full-time users. So just a convenience for some of your users who are already have Google. It does save them a little time, although they will end up having to, if you have those required fields, that required field specification, they will still have to give you that information. It's not going to let them just go in with just a name and password. Unless you decide, hey, we don't care, then you would, I believe that's an INI setting called required fields. So they could, you can list which fields you want or don't, that you want to specify there. If you leave that empty, then they can just proceed with just a name and email and password. So, so that's basically the feature. There are some other services out there. Facebook lets you log in. We looked into adding Facebook support. We're a little hesitant to do that right now because of all the security issues we've seen recently with Facebook. So we're holding off on that. There's another service that's often used in academic situations called Shibboleth. And if your campus is using Shibboleth, which is the federation that kind of mandates that, is called In Common. If either of those sound familiar as something that's in use on your campus, we're hoping, very sincerely hoping, and I've been working along with one of our other programmers on getting that implemented. That isn't fully ready yet. The Google part is available with 0.5.2, but in an upcoming future version, we'll have the Shibboleth support as well. That one is, Shibboleth is by all accounts very secure. It's used by a lot of enterprise type organizations across the country, and so we're working on allowing that sort of thing. But that would be a situation where if you say are running programs for people from your university and they want to log into your continuing education or extended studies program, whatever, they could use their university account to log in and wouldn't have to set up a separate account in Student Manager. Or they would end up with such an account. They have to have that account, but it would be automatically done through the single sign-on feature. So that's the single sign-on story.
And Stein,
Yeah.
I think we should probably also mention the Google single sign-on is going to function with organizations that do not allow multiple email addresses. So a lot of the places out there that have like kids camps and things where children are registered under their parents' email address, it's not going to function well with that. In order for Google to log you into an existing account, there really only can be one of those Google email addresses in the system for it to choose that account and log you in. So if you do allow multiple email addresses, this service is not currently set up to function with that. Right.
Yeah. And it would sort of work because Google would come back and say, steingo@gmail.com, you do have an account here. We'll just link you to that account. But if I had used that address for myself and my wife and my son, it wouldn't necessarily, it would just pick one of those accounts randomly. So that would be, yes, you're really going to have to have that that setting disabled for multiple, the I believe it's MULT for multiple email settings.
Yes.
You would have to disable that if you wanted to use the single sign-on. So, yeah, that's a good point.
And we were getting some requests to see some examples, I'm guessing, on the user ID source, the new flag there.
Okay.
So I'm going to
I was
try
just
and
going to
steal the control from you here.
Well, why don't I just do the X page because I got one up here.
Oh, I may have already switched it. Are you seeing my Internet Explorer?
Oh.
I am seeing your screen now, Jason.
Okay. Well,
okay.
All right.
So
prepared.
Here is this is our release form for this. So if you do want to see the flags that we have set before they're implemented into the online help, you can see those here. So what we're talking about, if we go to my ACEweb INI settings, all the way down at the bottom here, we're looking for user ID source. And what Stein was actually just talking about, if you allow mult, this is the flag that allows you to have multiple email addresses there. So you would not be able to use that at this time with the single sign-on service through Google. But the new one that we're talking about works in conjunction with this BOK flag. And BOK is basically saying you're allowed to create an account without putting in a password. If you add, let's do this, so BOK, extra, and then you add the flag once to that. There we go. What that's going to allow you to do is have your students initially create that account without using a password or a public password, and subsequent logins would allow them to use the public password to log in, but it's going to detect that there is still nothing in their actual password field in the database and force them to create a password at that time. So not a whole lot of situations where this is going to apply to the majority of the customers, but that is a feature that is available now. So there you go. The other one was in regards to the log off page. So you see this user logon.awp up here. The log off routine used to be tied to this, and it was basically saying user logon.awp and action equals log off, which is kind of a misnomer. So what Stein has done is just created a user log off .awp. Now, I'm not logged on, but if I was logged on as a student and you enter that URL, so you can use this as a link, stick it on whichever pages you want. If you use that URL, it's going to then log that student off of ACEweb. And I believe that was the only ones that needed showing, unless there's any other questions.
Hit your FAQ, Jason. Registration's
right.
FAQ, and then show the X page thing.
So if we go to the home page and you see I'm hovering over this link in the top left, and you can see at the very bottom of the page there, it says my URL localhost wconnect/a/xpage.awp, and then you have your !ampersand page equals faq.htm. Now, obviously, all of our ACEweb installations come with the FAQ, so it is a legitimate template that's in your folder, and that one is automatically allowed through. But let's say we had a different template that we did not permit. If you try and hit that, it's going to give you this invalid XPage request. And this is basically ACEweb's security saying something is trying to be passed in a template that we have not authorized. And so it's going to halt that so that nothing could be injected or run any malicious scripts that way. So if you do see this invalid XPage request, and it occurs like maybe right after you update, and then something that used to work is no longer working, it's likely that that is one of those custom pages or a really old one that just needs to be added to that INI setting. And that INI setting is at the very bottom called X pages. And so you would just enter in, xfaq.awp .htm. If you want to add multiple ones, just separate them with a comma. And then at that point, it would allow that page to run. I don't actually have an FAQ.htm, so I don't know what it'll do. Yeah, it's basically saying it
right.
doesn't
It's the
exist.
same
so
thing.
same error message, but yeah. And that is it. Any other questions come in, Sharon?
I'm not seeing any questions, but I would like to tell everyone that if you think of something later, you certainly know where to find us, and we're always happy to answer your questions. So I wanted to share with you that you have heard a lot today about INIs. And Jason will be next Thursday, I believe, is going to be doing a session on ACEweb INIs, keeping an eye on all those INIs. And he's going to really focus on those that may be new in ACEweb and those that control major functions in there. And I think his plan is to show you what it looks like in ACEweb and then take you behind the scenes to let you see what INI is controlling that. Jason, is that a true statement? And do you have any other things that you would like to share about the webinar next Thursday?
Hit the nail on the head. So yes, we're going to be looking at some of the bigger INI settings, some that have been added within the past couple of years that you may not know about. These would be ones that, again, toggle certain features on or off, or give you a pretty big control over, or something pretty neat about ACEweb that you may not be aware of. So we're going to focus on those. There's a whole lot of ACEweb INI settings, so this isn't going to be a let's cover each one kind of webinar, because that would take a really long time and probably be pretty boring. So we're going to focus on those cool ones, and I think everybody will get some benefit out of that.
I think everyone will appreciate seeing the ACEweb page and then looking behind the scenes to see what's making that function. And I also want to remind everybody that we will be in Vegas for our 2019 annual conference, the 4th through the 7th. We are finishing that schedule so we can open registration after Thanksgiving. And so be watching your email, watch your mail for postcards, and we will look forward to seeing you in Vegas. Certainly, if you have topics you would like us to cover, let us know. If you would like to present on something, let us know that as well. And since I'm not seeing any other questions, we're going to thank you again for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next week at Jason's session, and have a great weekend ahead. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right.